Hello, everybody. Welcome into Spector and Spooks podcast. I am your host, evidential medium Brooke Ashley. It has been a while. I have not been around for a little bit, but we are getting back into the habit finally now that I am all settled in. So we're back to things all spooky, all spirit, all everything. And I would love to introduce our amazing guest tonight. He is a wonderful friend of mine, incredible medium, trance medium, healer, Sylvester Allen. Thank you so much for being here today.
You're so very welcome, Brooke. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and have this chat with you. I'm super stoked.
I love it. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself for anybody who is not familiar with you and your work, because I find it fascinating.
Sure. Well, I am an evidential medium. I am also a trance medium. So I connect with loved ones that have crossed over to the other side, giving evidence. And I also work in the altered states where I do trance healing and also trance speaking. So that's just really where I am at with things right now. So I know people might not be familiar with trance. Trance mediumship is very different than the mental mediumship that people know us to do.
Right.
But it's all beautiful and it's all spirit.
I love that. So for anybody who's not aware of the difference between, because I know sometimes people are having a hard time even wrapping their heads around just evidential mediumship. So for anybody who maybe is in this space who doesn't understand what trance mediumship is, do you mind explaining that a little bit so people understand that space?
Sure, absolutely. So with trance mediumship, it's really where you sit back and you remove yourself completely. And you just become the vessel for spirit to use. And they'll use this in many ways. There's trance evidential, where the medium will be in a state of trance and a loved one will come forward and they're giving evidential messages that way. There's trance communication, where you're in the altered state and spirit will, I don't want to say take control, because a lot of people mistake trance for possession, and it is not possession at all. It's more of a blending, if you will, to where you are really blending with the spirit, and this allows them to really come through and speak through you. And the messages, can be philosophy, they could be, things from advice. A lot can be done in trance, but what makes it trance is the altered state. Your brain waves are at a lower frequency. And it's almost like going to sleep, really. And once I am finished with the trance communication or whatever, that's really what it feels like. So, what I will say is this, is that with entrancement, I don't, it's nothing that I am doing. I just surrender, and the spirit world does the work.
Yeah, I find trance mediumship absolutely fascinating, because I will say this, we do live in kind of a world where you don't have to prove that you're capable of doing something, right? So anybody can claim to be a medium, a psychic, a trance medium, things of that nature, right? But I find one of the things that I noticed about trance mediumship is true and honest trance mediumship. Number one is kind of rare. This is what I hear, that it's more of a rare thing, because it takes such a deep surrender of control, which is hard for a lot of people to do. That's one. But number two, I was told by, I can't even remember who told me this. I think it was Kaz Dukes from the Acorn Academy, but she had mentioned that true trance mediumship will entrance the person who is watching it too. It's almost like you cannot look away. And I also find it to be like, it kind of takes you to this space where you can't like take your eyes off of it. I also find that trance mediumship is quite interesting, because You will, if no one in this audience has actually seen trance mediumship in action, the voice changes, sometimes the face changes. It's absolutely entrancing and fascinating to watch. So have you found anybody that you think in trance mediumship would be a really good place for someone to check out for the first time looking at trance mediumship in order to really see what true trance mediumship should look like?
Yes, absolutely. And you're right. With entrancement, you can tell that it's true trance because you can feel the presence of the spirit, right? You can literally feel the energy shift and change. You can feel the medium's personality change. What you talked about is that you talked about the overshadowing, or some people might call it transconfiguration, to where the face will also change, the voice will change, but you're literally at the edge of your seat because you are in trance. You're just like, okay, you are really in it while watching it, and you just can't turn your eyes away. There is a spectacular trance medium. Her name is Elaine Thorpe, and she works with her guy Jonathan. And if you've never seen a demonstration of trance, she's pretty big on YouTube. I would definitely check out Elaine Thorpe. It's mind blowing,
Wow,
mind
that's
blowing.
beautiful. That's amazing. So you guys heard him. Check out Elaine Thorpe if you want to see that for yourself and kind of be entranced in that space so that you can understand what trance mediumship feels like, it looks like, what the differences might be between that and evidential or mental mediumship. Definitely check that out for sure. So Sylvester, I'm kind of curious, like, I think that it's kind of interesting because we have all types of mediumship, right?
Mhm.
But you are a spiritualist, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm a spiritualist medium, and I it falls under the umbrella of mediumship, and uh, some people are just like, well, what exactly is a spiritualist medium? And spiritualist medium just meaning that I believe in a higher power, and I believe in the power of spirit and the power of the divine of God, and really doing this work through that divine force.
Yeah, definitely. I know that sometimes people get a little caught up on like, well, what is spiritualist or spiritualism? But it's truly it's a religion, it feels like. Yes, like it's
Yeah,
like
it is.
people have Christianity or Catholicism or Buddhism or whatever it is. It's like kind of what I think people don't understand, that it's actually a religion where you have church services, and the service of the church is mediums giving messages from spirit. That is the sermon. That is, messages from spirit is kind of that space. So do you mind talking a little bit about what somebody might encounter if they wanted to check out a spiritualist church?
Sure. With the Spiritualist Church, and I've done several divine services and demonstrations for spiritualist churches. And normally the format is that the medium will begin by doing philosophy. And philosophy is where you are speaking for 20 to 30 minutes and just inspired by the Spirit. And with spiritualism, it is a religion, and it's huge in the UK, and it's really based on the seven principles, is what it's based on. Um, and in a divine service, there's prayers, opening prayer, there is music. The medium will give the philosophy, which is about life, things going on in life, a very moving message, learning about the journey of the medium through this philosophy. It's very impactful and it's very powerful with the philosophy. And then after the philosophy, then there is the demonstration of mediumship. The point of spiritualism is, look, death is an illusion. There's more to life after life. And the demonstrations really prove that.
Yeah. Yeah, they're beautiful. I've seen some of the sermons. I've seen some of these. It's kind of like, like if a preacher was to get up and give a message from God or a message from the Bible or something of that nature. It's something that the collective needs to hear for
Hmm.
healing, and things of that nature. So I think it's really beautiful. I know spiritualism isn't my religion personally, but I find beauty in all of it. I really do. It's just a beautiful space of healing and love and connection. And I love that. But I think that people watching tonight might be interested to kind of understand how you even ended up here. Like what brought you to this space in your life?
Sure. That's a really great question, Brooke. And now you mean, how did I end up becoming a spiritualist medium, or how did I just come into mediumship?
Mediumship in general. Where did we start?
Well, picture it. It is Germany. It is 1981. It is post Hitler and Nazi Germany. Sylvester Allen is born in Bavaria. Born in Germany and born in Bavaria. And my father was in the military. And I think this is quite fitting because of the theme of your show. Um, and I first became aware of spirit when I was just a small child. And where we lived, my family, we lived in Adolf Hitler and his main headquarters. And so I remember vividly as a child seeing Nazi spirits walking around and hearing boots on the floor in the attic and hearing conversations and all types of just wild things happening.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, so that is first how I became aware of spirit. And, of course, until about 7, 8 years old, that just kind of like, shuts down. And it just did not come up until about 4 years ago or so.
Yeah. Wow. That is fascinating. What an incredible childhood,
Hmm.
Sylvester. That's
Hmm.
amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah, wow. I feel like I think it's interesting because a lot of the mediums that I've talked to have had an experience of actually seeing ghosts as a child, like seeing whether it's residual energy, whether it is like intelligent,
Hmm.
whatever it is. There has been a space where they, everybody I've spoken to has had that kind of ability or realization. And either they're talked out of it or they are told that it's not real. They kind of fall back from that a bit and then rediscover it later on in life. So, do you feel like there was something that happened to kind of reintroduce you to the realization that you could see beyond that veil a bit later on in your life?
Yeah, I was in New York City and I was living there and I was working a very corporate life and I was, in the C-level suite and life was pretty sweet. I, I had a nice apartment, nice things, sports cars, and well, sports car, and
Mm-hmm.
living the good life there. And there was an emptiness that was there, and anyone looking would say, "Oh, this guy has got it all. Life seems really great," but life was kind of like, ho hum. And it wasn't what I thought it was. I thought that, hey, look, I spent my career aggressively climbing this ladder, setting these goals for myself. And I thought, okay, well, by the time I make this amount of money, I'm going to be happy. I made that amount of money. I wasn't. Okay, well, I need more money. I'm going to be happy. I need more. That happiness never came. And I just remember there was a point, and it happened during COVID. And I feel like there was just this kind of mass awakening across the globe in 2020 when COVID hit.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like, the spark was just reignited. And it really happened with what I would call um, it. I believe it was a Kundalini awakening. And I remember I was with a friend and I was watching TV. I remember I was watching Game of Thrones. We were watching that. And I get up and I go somewhere, and all of a sudden I come back and I just feel this pressure on my chest. My arm goes numb. I start getting really hot and cold, and I start sweating. And my body did not feel right. And it just happened out of the blue. And I just thought, okay, what's happening here? I said, oh, holy shit, I'm having a heart attack.
Oh
And I
my God.
thought, I'm too young to have a heart attack. Like, what's going on here? I was rushed to the hospital, and literally I thought, I'm dying. This is it. And so I get to the hospital, they rush me back, they're running all these tests, and they say, well, we can't find anything wrong. We're checking for the enzymes, they're not there. We're just going to go ahead and release you, just kind of relax. And I remember leaving the hospital that night, and as soon as I walked out and I felt the fresh air, I just had this sense of knowing that I hadn't had before. It was just the sense of knowing, and it was a beautiful feeling. And I remember I get home that night, and I'm with my friend, and we're hanging out, and all of a sudden, Brooke, I kid you not, I felt that feeling again. And I said, what the F is happening? It's happening again. And all of a sudden, I felt this surge of energy. Like, when you will light like an incense cone and it will burn and it burns down? It literally felt like that was happening from the tips of my feet, and it was traveling up my body. And I literally thought, I am dying.
Oh
This
my.
is what dying feels like. And literally it comes up, and I tell my friend, I said, holy crap, this is it. I'm done. It got to my head, then all of a sudden I heard boom. And when I heard this boom, I kid you not, Brooke, it was almost like I saw like the universe. And there was like all this energy that just started to cascade around me, and I could just feel tingles all over my skin. And I really believe, and this was, the day after Thanksgiving, about it's going to be 5 years ago, that my life completely changed. Um, and you know, things just started appearing again. And a good friend of mine came over one morning, and I remember as soon as I opened the door to let him into my apartment, I felt the surge of energy just boom hit me in my chest. And it was like the surge of energy just going up and down my body. And I was like, what's going on here? And then I could just feel my friend. I said, you seem really sad. What's wrong? He says, well, my best friend passed away last night. And I was like, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I said, was his name this? He says, yes, it was. And I said, and I feel like that this happened. I feel like I'm going to talk about that. I've been drinking and this. And he says, yes, exactly. And that's really how it first started to manifest.
That's amazing. I think that that's so incredible because when you have these like major switches, they're so hard to really put into words, but it's something that nothing will ever be the same again. You can't go back. You can't, and I love to hear stories about how it happens naturally for people in that moment, or something happens without the prompt. I find that so fascinating
Mm-hmm.
because I know for me, I had to take a beginner's mediumship course to even know that I was capable of it. For me, it was more like all of this wild psychic stuff and all of this paranormal stuff and all these knowings, but feeling like, okay, well, I'm not like Teresa Caputo, right? Like either you can do it or you can't. And if I could, I would know that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, I had to take a course to realize, oh my gosh, mediumship is so much different than they portray it to be. It is not at all what it's portrayed to be. It's so subtle. It's such a Pictionary, telephone, and charades, a game
Mm-hmm.
of Pictionary, telephone, and charades in that way. And I know that I tell people all the time, like everybody has mediumship abilities. Everybody is connected to the spirit world because they are spirit. Like we're not humans that like are having a spiritual experience. Like we are spirit, we are tethered. There's a full tether to the spirit world. It's like I think our soul puts like one foot into the spirit world and just walks around like a puppet. You're already tethered to that world.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are like, well, I wish I could do what you do, I wish I could connect, I'm like, I wish you knew that you already were. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty incredible. So what advice would you have for people who have no idea that they're already connected to the spirit world? What advice would you have for them?
Hmm. Wow, that's a great question.
Yeah.
What advice for those that, first of all, I agree with what you're saying, Brooke, is that we all have the ability to connect to the spirit world
Mm-hmm.
because we are spirit. And my guide speaks of this being the world of matter that allows the soul to experience this human existence. Because what we truly are is that we are consciousness, we are the divine spark, we are a part of the great creator. And so, what I will say is this, is that for those that are interested in um, connecting to the other side and making that connection, I would say develop it, and honor it, I feel like that we are in a day and age right now where um, it's almost looked upon like this is a novelty, that
Mm-hmm.
it is like a party trick
Yeah.
that we do, and it's not. It's something that is sacred. It's something that should be truly honored and revered. And you want to, one, get into development with a really good teacher, circle leader that can hold your hand and that can guide you, and teach you to do it the right way. And I always say, connecting to the spirit world is the easy part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone can teach you to connect to the spirit world, but how is it that you learn to trust what is of your mind and what is coming from the spirit? Because the spirit works through the right side of the brain, which is imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Spirit works through imagination. So why do you think so many mediums are in development and they're just like, I don't know if this is my own mind, I feel like I'm making this up? Because it's coming from your imagination.
Right. Exactly.
Which is why they
Mm-hmm.
say, medium, know thyself. Not
Mm-hmm.
just know yourself, like, okay, Sylvester's favorite color is, we'll say green, because everything is green right now. And Sylvester likes chicken. And so, no, it's know your thoughts, know how your brain works, uh, know yourself at a soul level. So that's what I would say for mediums that are wanting to connect to spirit. Now, I might get a little bit of guff for saying this. Um, yes, everyone has the ability to connect to spirit. Everyone has the ability to hone into their psychic senses. But will everyone uh, become a professional medium and hold space for people that are going through the darkest hours of their life and are grieving? I think that takes a special skill.
Yeah.
It
I agree.
does.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I know that my mentor always likes to put it like this. Everybody can play the piano. Not everybody's going to be a concert pianist.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Because we all can connect in that way, right? But look, I think another aspect of true mediumship in the way of like moving into a space where you are holding space, you are evidential, you are making that connection. Not only does it take a world of training, but you could train for 20 years. And if you are not healing yourself, you're not going to go much further. Because another thing that was also said to me that I really took to heart and thought that's got to be true because it's true for anything in life is that the more healed you are, the better medium you can become. Because
Oh,
yeah, you will not be triggered. You will not be triggered by things. You will not be looking through your lens only. If you can become a healed person and heal things within you, you can take those goggles of your own issues and your own trauma off, and you can look at things from a detached perspective, which allows you to connect in a way that doesn't have a rhyme or reason for you, right? So say someone hasn't healed their disagreement with someone being a substance abuser, right? They look down on it. They don't see empathy in there. They can't be empathetic. Maybe they're dealing with someone in their own family that they have angry feelings towards, or maybe they've never known someone who had substance abuse issues and they were taught from their own family to look down upon that. There's no empathy. So how could a spirit come to you and say, I need to talk about this issue that I had, without you either not picking up on it or going, ew, I don't want to talk to you. You know what I mean? Right? So, and that could be for so many things. So the more healed you are as a human being and a person, and the more trauma you can release, the better medium you can become. Because really, medium is what I call myself, I'm the mailman. I just take the mail from one person to the next, right? So the mailman can't be reading the letters and getting all upset. No, I'm not going to deliver this letter because I don't like what's in it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that you said that you call yourself the mailman, because to be and takes a great deal of maturity as a medium to understand this. And I will say, when I was first starting my development, I was just like, yeah, all this sounds fine, this sounds great. Let me just go ahead and make my connections here. It's not until you go on your journey and you really start to go through the mud yourself that you're just like, this is like some real heavy shit. And you've got to be committed, because when you are committed, then you are looking at your own traumas, right? You're looking at that. And I find that the best mediums are those mediums that don't really have any bias.
You have to. You got to look at your own bias. You know, you have to, because your viewpoint is going to switch everything. The way that you believe or think is going to put in the forefront, it's going to change the trajectory of how you perceive information, right? So say someone says, oh, that's an evil spirit, they're evil. Well, are they evil? Or did they make a lot of mistakes in life that you don't agree with? So you deem the energy that's coming into your space as evil, when in reality, it's just a person who made a lot of really bad mistakes and maybe wasn't the best person in life. They didn't make the right decisions. They maybe did ugly things to other people. And you go, oh, you're evil, I can't talk to you. Well, now Sally Sue can't get the closure she needs from her dad because you deem him to be evil because of your perception of what that energy feels like. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And the other thing that you learn, the more that you are in your mediumship journey, and one thing I would say to new mediums, really start telling yourself this, and I would tell myself this all the time at the very beginning of my development, and I still tell myself this, even now, when I meditate and I pray before I go into meditation, before I sit in the power, or before I do a demonstration, or before I do a sitting, and I let it be known that this is not about me. That, I am here as a servant to the spirit world, to be the instrument to tell their story for those that can no longer speak. And we sometimes we see to where mediums really get stuck with, this is about me. Look what I can do. I'm so great. It's not about you. You are just the middleman delivering the message.
I completely agree with that. Definitely. So it's so true. It's I think it's there's always space to grow too. I feel like not only in that space that we just spoke about, but growth also in life. Like, I also like to talk a little bit about how mediums can become even better mediums, not only when they grow as a person, not only when they put aside their own bias and heal their own stuff, but it's also the physical things. It's understanding reference banks, right? I think another fascinating side of mediumship is the fact that sometimes we can get stuck in our own beliefs and forget that there are like even people out there who had different beliefs from us, right?
Mhm.
So there's also the aspect of not only learning what you believe, but even learning what other people belief systems are, and maybe how other people live their lives, maybe in other countries or around the world, because if you don't know it, you can't deliver it, right? If it's not in your
Yes.
reference bank, it can't be delivered. So for those of you who are watching today who don't understand what we mean when we say reference bank, we're really talking about the information as a whole that a medium has at their disposal to be able to, I call it a Rolodex. And I say spirit has to literally file through our Rolodex. What will they pick up on? Okay, they won't know that. It's not in here. Oh, this. Okay, I'll show them this or I'll tell them this, right? Example, I had a girl who wanted to have a reading for her dad. She wanted to bring through her father.
Mhm.
And she wanted to know if he knew what they did for him for his funeral. Well, I couldn't see the exact thing because it wasn't in my reference bank, because his culture was completely different than mine. And it wasn't something that I knew. This is not a tradition I was aware of. So the closest I could get was, I know that he's telling me you gave him something of a religious nature in his casket with him. I know it has to do with religion and he wants to say thank you. And she said, yes, I believe they were Buddhist robes. I believe he was Buddhist and they wrapped him in these particular robes or colorful robes,
Mhm.
right? So I always think it's also fascinating to remember that whatever life we live, it's not the only life out there, right? And the more that we can dive into how other people live, going back to like, not having bias and things of that nature, but moving into the space of how other people may have lived, it only makes your mediumship better. Have you ever run into something like that, Sylvester, where you were not sure until after the reading or until the validation portion that this was someone with a piece of material or information that you would not have been able to pick up on due to not being aware of it or having it in your reference bank?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, because spirit can only use, and it's interesting, you call it reference bank, we call it many things. I call it a toolbox. And
Mhm.
spirit is actually using everything that you have seen, everything that you have learned, everything that you have encountered in the span of your life. And I will give you an example of this. Is I did a reading just yesterday, and when the spirit came through, one of the first pieces of evidence that the spirit gave me was a cup that would change colors when you poured cold liquid into it. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this is very 80s, 90s. I haven't seen one of these things in a long, long, long time. And I thought, okay, this is strange. They're showing me this cup. This is bizarre. And, the sitter had her dad's cup, this cup that he was enamored with and would drink out of it all the time and pour the cold liquids in. And I've not thought about that, Brick. I'm not kidding, like a good 20 years, 20 plus years.
Yeah.
I've not thought about that in 20 something years. And all of a sudden, the spirit is showing me this. Um, there are times to where, for instance, a really great story is I was doing a reading for a sitter once, and I was like, I've got your loved one here, and I know that your loved one would get up in the middle of the night and they would go downstairs and they would eat and eat and eat. Do you understand this? The sitter's just like, yes, I understand that. And I was like, okay, I need to talk about the peanut butter and crackers. Can you understand peanut butter and crackers? The sitter's just like, yes, I can understand the peanut butter and crackers. After the readings, she's giving me some validation. And she says, you had my loved one. They would come downstairs, they would eat, but it wasn't peanut butter and crackers. In their culture, they would make this dish, or they would have this dish to where the bread was like a cracker and they would put this paste on it. and it was thick like peanut butter. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't know what that was called because that's, not in my wheelhouse. But Spirit said, you know what, Sylvester, he might not know what this is called, but he knows a cracker and a peanut butter.
Trying to get you as close as they can
Yeah,
to what it would have been without it being in your field of reference.
exactly.
Yeah.
Which is why it's important as a medium, um, to live life,
Mhm.
to have experiences. I feel like a lot of times that mediums start to develop and they start to really go within and they start to isolate, and there is no more growing. It is through the experiences of life that you add to this toolbox. I make it a point whenever I go outside, I'm going to talk to like 5 new people today. And you best believe when I'm talking to those 5 people, I am scanning them up and down to see what they're wearing. I'm picking up on psychic impressions. I'm listening to the way they talk. I'm
Mhm.
listening for accents. I'm looking at the world totally different now.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the world totally different now.
I love that. I think that it's incredible, right? Because it's true. And what you say is like you have to get out there, you have to live life to build that reference bank and truly absorb. And it makes a lot of sense because my mediumship, once it starts to get stale, it's when I've been isolating. It's only when I go out and I have a new experience, I go on a new adventure, I'm doing some new things, or whatever it is, that all this kind of new stuff is coming into my awareness, or old stuff that hasn't been around in a long time coming back into my awareness, that my readings go through the roof again when I start. I'm like, see, if I hadn't have saw that the other day, if it wouldn't have come in. It wouldn't have been in my I have been listening to so much Prince lately, Sylvester, so much. I had a dad today sing Little Red Corvette to me. I was like, he is singing Little Red Corvette. She's like, he had a red Corvette. He loved that. He loved
Oh,
it. Right? So
oh,
I'm not a big Corvette person. I don't know anybody with a Corvette. If I wasn't listening to Prince on repeat, would he have used that? Would he have told me he had a Corvette? He probably would have been like, oh, she might not pick up on that. Next,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's incredible. I love it. I'm wondering what is the most, without giving too much information, of course, because we like to keep our readings confidential, but
Mhm.
what is the most like profound experience you feel like you may have had in a reading? And I know it's hard to choose. We do so many readings and there's so much healing that goes into it, especially if you're in a trance state. I'm sure you're not remembering or recalling a lot of that, but
Mhm.
what is one or two instances where you felt like, this is why I do this?
Yeah, I can think of two that really come to the top of my mind. Um, this was a reading that I had, and um, when they book, I'm pretty sure that they didn't even use a real name. They gave no info. Um, they just booked for a day and a time. And when they came on the screen, they did not come on the screen. It was just pitch black with, I think, Samsung 1394067.
Yeah.
And they were just speaking, but I couldn't see them. And they're just like, I would like to connect with my son. And without giving too much, had a tragic passing, and they wanted answers. They wanted answers. And as I start to bring their son forward and I start to give details of what's going on, and they start to piece things together that the police, had, and they're able to make sense of things, just the relief that they felt. Because I will be very honest with you, and I'm not going to give too much about this, but this person's uh, their death was ruled a suicide.
Mhm.
And I didn't know this. I'm just giving them the information. I'm unfolding it the way that the spirit is giving it to me.
Mhm.
And I say at one point, I said, they're saying that they would have left, that they're sorry, that they would have left a note. They would have left a note. He's telling me this. They would have left a note.
Mhm.
And it wasn't till after to where there was relief. And she says, what he's saying is that if he committed suicide, he would have left a note.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I could literally feel the relief for this mother. And there was another reading that I did to where this person, their loved one, was murdered. They were murdered. And of course, I don't know how it is that they pass, but as I'm talking about the details, you know, I'm bringing it, and it's like all of a sudden, I was like, I'm in this truck or this big car, and it's bumpy. It's bumpy, it's bumpy, and it's dark, and there's lots of trees around, and I'm looking at the stars, and I say to them, I said, you were on their mind the whole time. And I said, and they want you to know that they didn't suffer and that it was fast. Now,
Mhm.
they didn't show me that they were murdered,
Yeah.
but they really needed to hear that this person did not suffer.
Mhm.
And I believe the spirit world is very intelligent. I don't question the spirit. Where the spirit leads me, I follow. I say,
Mhm.
where the spirit leads, I will follow. The spirit knew that they were wanting to hear this, and the spirit gave that. You know, I don't believe in really harping on the death of the spirit
Mhm.
because they were so much more than that.
Yeah.
And I believe it could trigger someone and really cause a lot of harm. So, you know, ethics go into play here. But those two times are some of the most memorable. And it really solidifies that this work that we do is so important. And it's more than just about, look at what I can do.
Mhm. Yeah, completely. We're dealing with people's darkest, most grief-stricken moments. I feel like grief, the loss of another person, that's a level of pain that I feel like if you were to tear, like pain, emotional pain, like that's at the top of the tier. You know what I mean? And you are dealing with something so delicate, so unbelievably delicate. I feel like it's kind of, I find it kind of interesting too, because I do find that a lot of the mediums that I know had tragic passings in their life where they lost someone who was close to them, and it kind of triggered a space of opening for them, that space of, it's almost like grief opened up something in them, you know what I mean, to connect to the spirit world. But it's just such a space of it's a delicate space. It is very, and it is unfortunate, you know, that there are a lot of spaces out there who don't hold that in a loving, tender, and ethical way. You
Mhm.
know, it's very unfortunate, but I think it's important for people to know that even if you are out there and you have experienced a medium that has scared you, that has upset you, that has said things that have harmed you or hurt you, they are not the we're ethical mediums are out there. Don't give up. You know, don't give up. Keep searching for the proper. Do your research. Search for the proper channel for you to connect to your loved ones. Don't believe people when they tell you that your loved ones are stuck or they're hurting and they can't reach you. Don't believe it. I don't want you guys to ever believe anything like that. So if you've ever been told anything like that by a so-called medium, I need you to know and understand that's me, not only me, but so many of my colleagues. I don't purport or claim to know everything. I have no knowledge of the spirit world as a human. All of that is you know, saved for my soul and my spirit to garner and keep. But I can say not only me, but Sylvester and many of my colleagues and people that I've learned from have not experienced, you know, a position of people being stuck and not really in the spirit world. I mean, it just depends on your belief system, but I just, what are your thoughts on that, Sylvester? Because it's not something I've experienced, and this is I'm coming from a space of I was Christian, then I was not, then I was Christian again, then I believed in demonology, and I said studied demonology, and then maybe I thought that people could get stuck at a certain point, but now moving into mediumship and actually being in it for 6 years, it's not what I've experienced.
Mm.
How do you feel about that?
I feel the exact same way. Your loved ones are not stuck. Everyone makes it to the spirit world. Everyone,
Mhm.
they make it. And with the spirit world, there's peace. I've read some people that have done some horrendous things that were just
Mhm.
downright awful people, and they make it. Now, my belief is this: is I believe that everyone makes it to the spirit world. I also believe, and I don't know everything, um, but I have run into um, spirits whose energy feels heavier.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
they're not in pain, they're not suffering, they're not burning in hell.
Mhm.
They
It's
don't feel as happy as
right.
some of the other ones. And I have to wonder why that is. And I believe there are different levels to it. I believe there are different vibrations, it's energy. And I
Mhm.
believe that the spirit world has that. It has different vibrations. I
Mhm.
believe there are different realms in the spirit world, things that we don't know, things that we don't understand. And it's a great mystery.
Yeah.
Um, but I believe everyone makes it to the world of spirit. I don't believe that there is a hell. And you know what's interesting is that with me doing this as long as I've been doing this and as many readings as I've done, I will have a spirit say to their loved one, "I'm in heaven. I've made it to heaven," because they know that their loved one needs to hear that.
Mhm.
But I'll be honest with you, I've never heard a spirit say, "I'm with Jesus,"
Mhm.
or I'm with this deity or this. And I question that,
Yeah.
because with it, some of these people that I sit, they're really religious, and their loved ones were really strong in faith, and you would think that they would come through and say, "I met God, and this was so intense and so powerful," and I've not heard that yet. And hopefully I don't get any guff from this, but I have to be honest. That's just been my experience.
I just made an Instagram reel about this.
Did you?
Yes, I did. I totally agree. It's a reel that I just made, like advice word, like word from a medium on, do they talk about like I was right, my religion was right? Do they ever? No. I have never I hear about faith, I hear about love, I hear about peace, but I don't hear about like, oh yeah, Susan's not up here because she had an affair with Bob down the street. She's burning in a fire eternity. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
don't hear that. I also don't hear them confirm whether or not their religious beliefs were correct.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, right?
It is very interesting because it is a big cornerstone of human society to have this religious belief for a lot of people. So you would think that, okay, if you were so hell strong and hell bent on this,
Yeah.
that you would come back saying, "It's real, it's real."
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of interesting, right? So it's like, are we putting human language and putting boxes on basically what everyone is saying? It's maybe everyone is kind of saying the same things, but they're putting their own box on it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like the spirit world is what we're all kind of talking about. It's just less complicated than that, you know? Yeah, definitely.
I like
Yeah.
to say there are many roads that lead to Rome.
Hmm.
There are many roads that lead to Rome.
It's true. It really is true. And I implore people to keep an open mind when listening to all of those around them, because there's truth sprinkled in everything, right? There's truth sprinkled in everything. It's just, how do you see it? How do you look at it? What is the tradition behind it, right? So my mentor, she travels different countries because she's fascinated by the idea of what does death in culture look like? What does death in each space look like? Like
Mm.
we here in Western space, we fear death. We bury our dead, you know, in the ground. Whereas you go to Indonesia and they celebrate death. They celebrate the life that was lived, and they keep their loved ones in their quarters with them for long periods of time, a year even, before they bury their loved one, right? We have India where people will cremate them and send them out to the water, and they will, you know, like, so people think, oh my gosh, that's so morbid that you would keep your loved one in like a casket in your home, mummified with you for like a year. But it's beautiful to them. Like, they're thinking, oh my gosh, you just bury your loved ones in the ground and you like just leave them there and you don't, you know, like, so maybe our culture is super morbid to another culture, right? So it's fascinating to see how each culture sees the afterlife and sees the spirit world. It's a vein of these incredibly different things that I think all kind of come to the same conclusion or the same road at the end eventually, you know?
Yeah, I love that you said that, Brooke. I think of this often is whenever a baby is born into this world, we celebrate. We have baby showers, there's pictures taken, there's all this to do when a baby is born. And I feel like in our Western civilization, that death is something that is feared. It's something that we don't really talk about. It's taboo, but there is such beauty in death. And I know this sounds morbid, it sounds scary, but there really is. The human body, you know, really is built towards the end to really shut down in a way that is beautiful. It is a transition, just like birth, you're here, death is a transition into something that is glorious.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, I think that we should talk about it more and be more open about it here.
I agree. I do agree with that. I find it's kind of interesting. It's so interesting. We deem death as such a loss. It's such a loss because we are so confined by the idea of tangibleness here in the physical world. Everything is so tangible, right? And I believe Virginia, who you know,
Mhm.
she just put up a post about, she took a poll and she asked people, if you could see your loved one one more time, what would you do? And like 90% of people said, I would hug them. And she talked about how, isn't it fascinating that that's the connector, that physicality is so ingrained in us here in the human world, just to know that I would touch them, physically touch them again, you know, that it just shows you how programmed we are to like this physical space that we have and everything needing to be so tangible. But if people could understand the beauty and vastness and unbelievably like incredible nature of the spirit world, maybe that fear could subside a little bit and you could have peace in knowing that we continue, and even though they're not in their physical body, there's so much beauty in the spirit world that they are experiencing and waiting for that day when you join that space with them. You know what I mean?
Oh, beautifully said, Brooke.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. You are right. And it's really when a person transitions and they leave, it's really about us and the void that is left within ourselves. And it's that selfish part of us that wants to have our mom here or dad, whoever it is. But if we lived in a world to where we taught people, you could still talk to mom, you could still talk to dad, but they're still very much here, they're around, they see what it is that you're doing, they're just on another frequency. I think the world would be a totally different place. But there's also power in that.
It's true. I
There's power in that.
completely agree. That is such a beauty. It's so beautifully said. It's the truth, You know, it truly is the truth. And I think that you might agree with me in doing as many readings as you've done, is letting people here know that, oh my gosh, I wish there was another language I could use to tell you that your loved one is so enmeshed in you every second of every day. Like you miss them, they never miss you because they don't have to, because they're in the spirit world, and the spirit world is everywhere, you know? Yeah.
Exactly. Omnipresent.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel like this kind of is going to kind of wrap up our beautiful evening together, Sylvester. This has been absolutely an incredible conversation. I appreciate you so much. Why don't you tell everybody before we leave where they can find you and what you are up to, okay?
Sure. So you can find me on Facebook, Sylvester Allen, also Medium Sylvester Allen. You can find me on TikTok, Sylvester Allen Medium. um, you can also go to my website, sylvesterallen.com. And what am I up to? There are some things that are in the pipeline that I really can't discuss right now. But I do quite a bit of demonstrating for churches and platforms. So just kind of keep a lookout as those come up. Um, but there are some things coming up, and I hope to keep you all posted on that a bit later.
Oh, I'm excited to hear about oh, juicy, juicy.
It's exciting. It's exciting stuff. So, no.
I'm excited. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here tonight. I appreciate you as always. You are an incredible, wonderful medium and human being. And I just love you to pieces, Sylvester.
As are you, Brooke. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And we will see you guys next week for another episode of a Spector and Spooks podcast. Thank you guys for being here tonight. And make sure you check out the information on Sylvester that is posted along with this video. And make sure you are checking out all of the cool stuff he has coming up. I appreciate you all. And thank you. Good night.